Hello, everybody. Grant Hunter here with another Product Growth Leaders topic of the week. Steve, in our conversations with clients, it seems like we're getting more and more conversations with product leaders saying, how can you help me get senior leadership to understand, right? Understand what product management does and get aligned around it. So in trying to figure this out, I don't have the answers. And obviously when I don't have the answers, the place I decide to go is topic of the week. I think topic of the week is the perfect place to get these answers. But, is it just me, or is this becoming a more and more important theme that we're seeing from our clients?
Honestly, I'm not sure it is more and more. It's been a continuous drum through my career, for the last, I've been doing this for 25 years, something like that. And so many times in a training, people would say, does my executive know what you're telling me to do? Or could you please explain that to my executives? Or my favorite was, oh, are you doing an executive briefing? And I'm like, yes. And they'd say, remember to use that slide and look at Bill when you say it. But it does seem that I both love and hate Agile. I love what we can get with Agile, and yet it does seem that Agile has encouraged somehow the executives to turn us all into factory workers.
And I think the key for me is little a Agile versus big A Agile, right? We all want to be Agile. We all want to have agility. But sometimes people try to practice the Agile practices too much that it loses, forest for the trees. But I think it'll be a great conversation. We got a great panel with us today. Cory Bryan, Wong, Pamela Schure, and we have a first-time participant, Richard Samela. And what we're going to do, we're going to start with our Monday question I put in there was, what is the best way to get senior leadership aligned around product strategy? And Debbie Levitt from the community, she's a UX, CX consultant, advisor, expert. She came out pretty quick and said, isn't the problem that you should have empowered and trusted teams, right? And it was really, this sort of lit a candle under me, because part of the issue is how do we align strategy? But part of the issue is, if we don't have aligned strategy, is there any ability to empower and have trust that's going on? And it's for me, I think these two things are interrelated. So as we go through this call, we're going to talk about both sides of alignment of strategy and empowerment and trust, and how they might be interconnected. Pamela, I'd love to get your take on this.
Okay, so my main problem has not sometimes been around getting senior leadership aligned. The other problem I've seen, though, is they don't share enough about the higher level strategies. And so I can propose a product strategy that doesn't make sense given what they're trying to do. And so when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about it like a marriage. Like, I know something and you know something, and we each need to give each other enough time to share the information and respect the perspective. But as a PM, very often I'm in the dark. And so what I propose doesn't make sense.
So in a way, these are two sides to the same coin, right?
Yeah.
If you're aligned on strategy, you can then empower and trust people to do it. Whereas if you're not, often when they're not empowering and trusting you, it's because they're not communicating it clearly with you.
And they're not communicating the depth of it. I think people often assume I'm just going to communicate this and they'll get the rest of it. And I don't think that actually works. I think you actually have to dive deep and say, if this is the strategy, here are the implications, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where I think the lack of trust comes maybe from above rather than below.
I get that. And actually, Debbie Levitt, in responding to one of my responses, says, Agile Manifesto Principle number 5, y'all, we shouldn't have to fight for being trusted and empowered. But if you're fighting for anything, fight for that.
I like it.
And I think we need to think about that top down and how we can go forward with this. Steve, I'd love to get your take on this, as we're getting into it.
Well, I guess I keep fretting on this whole lack of trust from leadership, and the relegating product managers to being the secretaries of leadership. leadership comes in and says, God spoke to me in a dream and we now need to do this feature. And they're like, yes, sir, I'll write that down. And I saw a Reddit post about this the other day. He said, I've been trying to be strategic and customer focused and market driven. And finally, I just threw up my hands in despair and said, I'm out. So it's now, hey, I had this great idea, and my boss, the boss comes in with his great idea and he goes, yes, sir, let me write that down for you. I'll just become a ticket jockey, which is, I think, an incredible squandering of a valuable resource. And it gets back to this whole idea that as president, I'm the only one with a good idea.
Gosh, I like that.
Is that the ultimate hippo?
Yes.
And I've been there. I've been twice. I've been the head of product for a founder-led CEO company, and always went in with this idea that I was brought in to help them scale and get away from just being, the CEO's ideas. In every case, it went back to that, and it's a very frustrating place to be. Especially when you feel like you were hired to be empowered and trusted to help them go somewhere where they're going to go. Cory, you said what?
I was just going to say, you just described my last job.
My last 5.
Talk to me a little bit more about that, Richard.
So, right, I was brought in. They didn't have product management. They didn't have project management, right? So they brought me in to lead and bring in project management. The first thing I actually did was build a product management funnel and hire a product management team, right? And then it's, okay, you're empowered because, right, we've come from an environment where the CEO would come into the room and just start yelling and screaming directions, and everyone was expected to jump and do what the CEO said to do. We want you to take the room and transform it in an agile way and create self-empowered teams.
That's what we want to do, right? Though, isn't that the goal?
That's what you want to do, but now you have these people who their entire career has been being told what to do, and now they're being told to own it. Don't wait to be told what to do, figure out what to do and own it. And they don't know how. Right.
That's an interesting dichotomy, isn't it? We want empowered teams, but we've never empowered them before. So how do we, and that sounds like it could be another topic of the week. How do we enable empowered teams to actually be empowered?
And then we say, well, gosh, our teams aren't empowered. Let's send this work offshore so it's guaranteed to not be empowered.
Or let's continue to micromanage until we take away any chance that they're going to feel empowered.
Indeed.
And that's what happened, right? The directors felt they still needed to micromanage and be involved in every single decision that was being made, down to, right, what processor is being chosen and what materials are being used, right? And you continued where nobody felt empowered and you didn't create these self-organizing teams.
You're taking me back, Richard, to my first time as a product management leader. I was a director of product management. I had a small team, 3 people working for me. And there was a critical time in that role where it was one of those sliding doors. You guys remember that Gwyneth Paltrow movie, Sliding Doors? I could have gone one of 2 ways. I could have gone the micromanagement way, right? Well, easy to do because I was a new product leader and I was being held responsible for the team. And there was one product manager who kept on messing up in one type of thing. It was, building out the business role type stuff, financial models, pro formas, that type of stuff, projections. And my choice was to keep doing it for him or to really empower him and teach him how to do it and give him the skills to do it, teach a man to fish, whatever it may be. And that's really where it came. That was that crucial point in my career as a leader where I think I made the right decision, but I could easily see me going down the micromanagement path. But at the time, I had too many balls in the air already. I didn't have the bandwidth to do it. And so I can see how our culture, this isn't, again, an interesting dichotomy we need to think about for maybe another potential topic of the week, right? Or Steve, this could be our lunch, what was it, coffee chat, whatever, on Saturday Night Live.
No.
Teams
cream
teams
cheese, neither cream nor cheese.
Yeah,
Discuss.
teams need to be empowered, but to be empowered, they need to learn to be empowered. Discuss.
Right. Well, I'm reminded of, I took over as the head of marketing in a group, and I said, guys, I'm tired of being micromanaged. I bet you are too. How about we do this? How about I don't micromanage you, because you know how to do your jobs better than I do. And the next day, the event planner came in and said, hey, I'm working on the banner. Which color do you like better? And I'm like, well, as long as it's in the brand color palette, I don't really care, but I'm kind of partial to green. And she's like, okay, good. Next day she comes in and says, which font do you like? And I'm like, well, I always learned that you use Helvetica for headings and Times for text. And she's like, okay. And she goes away. And then the third day she comes in with something else. And I'm like, wait, you're teaching me to micromanage you're demanding that I micromanage you. So I trust that you will make the right decision. And she just didn't believe me until, finally she did. Pamela's right. Fear of making a decision. It's just like, no, I'm going to let you make a decision, and sometimes they'll be wrong, and that'll be okay. I mean, it's a banner. It's not cancer.
It's interesting because one of those CEO founders I was working for, he would have an all staff meeting, and he's trying to have dialogue. He likes people who push back, and he would throw out ideas. Some of his team was so empowered that he would throw out, what if we did something like this? 2 days later, somebody will have come back having done that. He was just trying to start conversation, but that's not the right type of empowered team, right? He was trying to do that. Cory, you said, if they don't already believe it's crucial already, which is likely, then yes, having the conversation, talking money or value impacts to the next. Talk me through, how do you change them?
So it's one of these things where you can't change other people. Let's just start there. You can inform them, you can help them if they want to learn or if they want to understand or whatever. If they don't believe the same things you believe, whatever that is, you're not going to change their mind. They have to change their mind based on experience, information, and everything else. So that's where I start from. However, giving them enough information and talking to them in languages that they understand, especially at the senior leadership. And that's where, if they don't already believe this, which if we worked that way, if we worked in companies that already believed the things that we believed in, we wouldn't have these problems. But if they don't, then talking about why this will impact our financials good, why this will help with our customers, why this is better for everybody is kind of the thing to get alignment around there. But the real thing that I've seen more often is the senior leaders are split with their incentives and where they're encouraged to go or rewarded to go or punished not to go. And until you get that straightened out, until we all share the same goals for the year or quarter or whatever else, and those are aligned around the strategy, it doesn't matter what you share with them because they're not going to do it.
A really good point about shared objectives. It does seem that every VP works for their own company and they've got their own objectives, and those are often in conflict with the other VPs, which I've always thought was funny with people who had ampersands in their titles, so you would have like two conflicting objectives that you had to manage to. But in another little rantet I wanted to do with you, Cory, was it does occur to me that the senior leadership has micromanagement from the board or the investors. And so they come in with their seagull management, and, then the VPs go, well, I guess I need to turn around and slap some of that on my people.
The worst examples of this, and I don't know whether to believe it or not. Something is, you trust until they tell you not to, but or you discover that they're lying. But when they say, "I'd love to help you, but I can't because if I don't get these things done this quarter, I don't get my bonus, or I get my team cut by 10% if we don't hit these objective numbers," which are shit anyway, but we have to hit them because they're important, because they're what we're incentivized to do, and I want to do that. Those are because they're good people in bad systems.
Yeah, I love that view of it. I love that view of it. May, you had another dissertation in your answer. You said best case scenario, corporate leadership is completely aligned to the growth strategy across the organization. Product management has reasonable assigned domains. Product leadership has translate. I mean, this is you're painting a utopian society here, right?
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm trying to build, right? It's working towards that idea of what utopia looks like, but really like so there's several scenarios. One, right? One is a new leader, so senior leader comes in that kind of like runs that organization and has an idea for alignment. And then the other one is or like an existing leader had an epiphany while, I don't know,
We'll say take.
I'm not going to finish that one. So they had an epiphany and they decide like, this is the way to go. We need alignment across the org. And, you know, that is beautiful. Or how do you fix an existing set of leadership with like their ways of working? I mean, one's a lot easier than the other when you have a good leader, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my question is mostly where's your starting point?
Yeah.
And generally speaking, when you have a good top, like what does a good top down look like, right? So a good top down would be everyone agrees that every single pillar of this organization is moving towards the same goal.
Yeah.
Right. So there's the same overarching goal. Your goals might not be like, it's not a cascade, but every single one of your organization's goals need to impact the top one, right? It's not, no, we don't use that W word here. This is a safe space, Grant.
Well, no, but
is it a safe agile space or just a safe space?
Capital SAF, little E space.
Well, no,
I mean, it's capital.
Yeah, well, but let's talk about that. I mean, I've talked about before this my utopia, right, of alignment of strategy where corporate provides a strong strategy, which I tend to use the word cascade. I'm willing to use other words, but it guides, it informs, it provides guide rails for portfolio strategy, product strategy, go-to-market strategy. And we push decision-making downstream, right? We push decision-making to the point of the decision so things don't have to roll back up. And to me, that'd be the ultimate in trust and alignment and strategic alignment, right? And empowerment in that type of stuff. So I think you and I have a utopia, which is fairly similar.
I think so, but like the utopia again, like depends on the context, and the context always changes. So you'll never hit utopia because every time you improve, you need to change again. However, one thing I would like to point out is that like it's not about senior leadership alignment, it's alignment across the whole product to get to the same goal, right? So your product strategy is about the whole product strategy, which is all the VPs are aligned.
Yeah. Well, yes, it's alignment across all the functions, right? And Steve and I are working on this concept of problem-led, right? The key is having every function aligned behind the same problem to solve for the same market. And so we're getting alignment around the strategy and everybody's walking together.
Is that healthy though? Like I want to challenge that idea because like problem-led is a very specific frame of it, and at any given time with a large enough organization, you're solving a whole slew of problems across a whole slew of like market contexts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So your decisions can be product-led, but your strategy cannot, or problem-led, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like, I don't know.
I think it's more back to our previous conversation on product-led and what does product-led mean, us trying to find a way to to cut through some of that, because where it may be. Richard, any thoughts? I mean, this has been a conversation weaving around your first one. I just want to give you a chance to opine.
Yeah, so I haven't so much had issues getting alignment around the product strategy. Where I find the breakdown has always happened is alignment around the change required to implement the product strategy, and making sure that all of the leaders are saying the right things to drive that change.
I like that. That seems like a realistic achievement, not a utopian thing.
Well, I fear that what that also means is we have this strategy that we don't want to pay for. So how can we get our strategy for 1/10 of what it will cost?
Yeah, how can we do it on the cheap? So,
Yeah.
so Richard, when you're talking about that, it seems like the implemented part of it, right? And we all have this, whole product concept in the back of our mind. So in your experience, or from what you've just come from, which part did they really not want to invest in?
The people skills part.
So in other words, what does that mean? Does it mean you have like project managers that you're trying to make product managers? What does that look like?
Well, you have project managers that you're trying to make change management experts, right? You have product managers who are trying to create a product roadmap that's not Me Too products. And then you have leadership who's, well, I love the idea, but just make it happen.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we can just make it happen, but if you're then talking to your people and you're saying, well, yeah, I mean, sure, it's great, I just want it to happen, right? I don't care how you get there, right? You're not actually supporting the teams in the direction, because you're saying chaos is fine. So
I can see that. And it's, the number one, and I'm running out of number one, Steve, because I just said it yesterday that, segmentation and problem store, not solutioning are the two top problems we see with companies we work with. But I think the third top number one problem we see is a lack of strategy for product strategy even to be built from, right? And so,
our strategy
often
is to grow 10%.
Yeah. And so I think that there's a void in the corporate realm of what is strategy and how do you do strategy and how does that guide everybody else. And I think this is a cart or chicken and egg, right? Cart horse. You can't get aligned around product strategy with senior leadership if there is no strategy from the corporate to begin with. Cory, you've been patiently waiting with your icon hand raised.
My icon hand, yes. So there was a concept that I was reading about the other day that got me thinking similar to this, which is, are we talking about an us problem or are we talking about a me problem? When it comes to alignment around product strategy, that is an us problem. That is us as a company deciding what we're going to do, how we're going to approach things, whatever. That's us, and that's everybody. That's me, that's the senior leadership, that's the engineers on the team, that's the support people, whatever. It's us. What are we doing about product strategy versus what am I doing as either an individual product manager, engineer on team, a sales guy, whatever. What are they doing? So the concept is, I don't have it fully formed. It's just a thought that I want to apply to this, which is us versus me thinking.
That reminds me of a book. This may not at all be aligned with your point. It was talking about the failure of our school system, and it made the point that it used to be, we talked about what can we do for our kids, and nowadays we talk about what can we do for my kids.
That's a very American view. I mean, It is. Hey, Cory, when you were talking about the us and me, the question I had, and maybe it's getting too hierarchical with it, I almost feel like the me, though, also impacts the us that's downstream from me. I can't control upstream from me, the leaders. I can control downstream from me, the people who I enable. And so even in this role with an us versus me, I would think that my me may have an impact because I can provide, if I'm not getting the guidance from upstream, I can at least make some decisions and give guidance downstream to make that the us, you know, even if it's a partial us, I can prevent other people from having that same syndrome.
So that's where, so there's a couple different places that I can think of going there. But the thing you just mentioned, which is what can I do to help the people that I'm working with? And that's where you grasp the empowerment that you are able to do, which is I'm going to, in the absence of something else, I'm going to take the initiative to do something. And that something is create a product strategy where it wasn't, doesn't exist, or give some vision or some leadership where it should be, don't say should, where it is lacking and where I can actually do something. So I like that concept as well, is because I've been in that situation several times where there was nothing above, or the above was grow 10% or just get it done, or here's my great idea. And I've kind of ignored that, and I've said, that's wrong. This is the right thing to do. So let's go forward. And that worked.
And provide air cover for the team so they can execute and you protect
Yes.
them.
Yes.
I mean, that's a critical thing for me.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any other thoughts before we get to the poll?
Pamela, did you want to talk about circle of influence?
I guess I was thinking about times when I've tried to influence up and down and sideways. I think the more consistent I have been in the things that I say and the way that I say it, the more influence I get in an organization. And
You mean
so
like
it
repeat
can
everything
be
7 times?
I repeat everything 7 times, use the same language, and all of a sudden everybody starts adopting your language. And so you end up increasing your circle of influence, but you have to realize that it's a process. It's, you know, it's not a one-time thing. And I think a lot of PMs take it as I did this, why didn't they hear me? As opposed to, I'm a glacier, I've got to form Yosemite Valley. You know, it just takes longer, right?
Yeah.
I want
I'm a glacier. Yes, that's the T-shirt that we need to make.
I'm a glacier. I just slowly grind my way forward until everybody believes that I'm doing the right thing.
I want to respond to that. So one of the things I tell everyone I work with is that internal marketing, internal messaging is the most important thing you can possibly do, no matter what it is your role at, that you're doing. But what that means is not you telling the full story of what you're trying to do, is you talk to a dev and they repeat the words back to you and you hear what you want to hear. Like if a dev can say it back to you and tell you exactly what you want to hear, that describes like overall just like your goal or the thing that you want to hear, then you've done it right. So like it's not about being complete, it's about getting the right message across. And I think it's what a lot of people lack. Occasionally I've described it as like building your own cult internally. But like, you know, if you have followers and they're repeating your message, then that's what you need, right? Like, especially if you are trying to build something big out and need support, it's important. So build a cult.
So when doing that, what I have found is I want them to not just regurgitate what I said, just parrot it. I want them to say it in their own words. And that's where I know they have it, because somebody can hear what I said and repeat it. And I almost started laughing because in my head I was thinking cult of personality, but cult of Wong. But you know, I completely agree. I mean, that's the old thing they taught you in, you know, in any communication program, right? You have to get people to understand it, and you have to listen, and you have to do that type of stuff. I'm going to call a halt here to this first round. I want to get to our poll. which was sort of I didn't have any good multi-choice questions. So I went back to my old heat map and I asked the question, how trusted, empowered do you feel by senior leadership? Now, mind you, you see how low I am. Steve, I did this based on my last full-time job, not on working with you. You know, it would be all the way to the—
wondering about that. I wonder if that's a survey we should do internally and see.
But if I was doing it for product growth leaders, I would have been all the way to the right. I feel totally trusted and empowered here. It was interesting. We sort of had this, and often when we do the heat map, we end up with this dual bell curve. I was surprised, actually. I thought it was going to be a little colder, a little more on to the left. May, did you vote?
I did. I am not quite the top bump, but the second bump.
So you are feeling, you're utopian, as you said, you're feeling closer to, you're on the path to trusted and empowered.
Exactly. Yes. Like keep in mind, I am not a product manager in the traditional sense. So I do have like my circle of influence feels a lot wider than most PMs would feel, I think, generally speaking.
Yeah.
So like a lot of my current uncertainty comes from there's so much to do that like, but there's a lot of buy-in that comes in with the kind of work that I do as product ops. So it's like, yes, there's trust and empowerment, but there's also buy-in, which is kind of the opposite of trust and empowerment sometimes, if you think about it.
No,
So,
completely and totally. I get that. Richard, I don't know if you voted. Did you vote?
I did not.
I'm assuming based on what you've talked about from your last job, you would have been in the blue.
Oh, yeah. Well, so they would tell you or tell me that I'm all the way in the gold, right?
Okay. That's what their ideal, they thought their ideal self was, it was in the gold. The real self was.
But what they show is all the way on the other end. Right.
Sort of like this.
So where does that, okay, I at some point, Grant, we should discuss where the disconnect is. If management believes that they're in the gold, but what you see is the blue, what's the source?
Because they don't know how to let go.
They don't okay.
They feel like, oh yeah, right. You do whatever you need to do. We're going to support it. Right?
But then they don't.
Intentions versus behavior.
They're like, well, what about this? Oh, well, I need to be involved in this. Well, why are they making a decision without running it by me?
Yeah. I mean, to me, this is corporate life anymore, right? They say they want to be green and sustainable, yet they invest in things that aren't green and sustainable. They say they care about diversity and inclusion, but they fund things that aren't diverse and inclusive, right? It's, you know, to me, there's this show of what we should, okay, the consultants tell us we should be this way. And so we say we're empowered. We say we care about these things. We say we want this stuff. We say we want to be agile, but it's only, you know, what they say. It's not what they do. It's not how they act. And that's where change management comes in. That's sort of, Pamela, I think to your point where I see that it is. I mean,
one of my favorite phrases over my life, my career has been, I cannot hear you over the thunder of your actions.
Oof. Ooh, that hurts. Yes, you're right.
And as Cory points out, if you hear the phrase "you're empowered," you're not.
Yeah, it's actually one of the things. If they're saying it, then it's probably not.
The thunder of their actions.
Yeah, I love that. Pamela, your thoughts on this? I don't know if you voted. I mean, I hope you didn't vote about us, but
I did vote, but I voted in a theoretical company, not a real company. How about that? Does that make sense? Anyway, so I voted in a little bit in the blue because I felt like that was kind of the default in most situations.
It's what we hear, at least when we talk to people. That's why I think for the most part, you know, I mean, that I would have expected more blue. Steve, did you vote? Do I not trust and empower you?
I feel that you trust and empower me. Yes, I would certainly. I would hope most of us in a company of our small size would would be in the gold area.
Yes, I would agree.
High trust and empowerment.
Cory, you said you did not vote because you're not in a current place. If you know, but you had some good questions. Trusted and empowered to do what? What do you mean by? You mean have we answered that question?
I don't know. So there's two thoughts. The first is the exact question: to do what? To do your job? I don't know. I'd love to be able to do the job of a product manager. And very rarely do I get to do that job. That's what I'm actually looking for, is the ability to do that job.
Yeah.
I don't want to be somebody else's juris slinging ticket monkey. I don't want to be a project manager. I don't want to be a secretary. I don't want to be a sales support guy. I want to do the job of product management. And I want to do that at a company that values that. And that's,
that's the hard thing to find.
It is seriously hard to find, which is part of the problem. So that, again, trusted and empowered to do what? To implement the CEO's ideas, to get this thing that sales needs by the next trade show done. I mean, I don't want to be trusted and empowered to do that. But there's something else that I thought of, which is Bob Galen had an article that I really liked, which is he's running into a bunch of clients who are saying the phrase, our teams are empowered, because they read Marty Kagan's book and they think that's all that needs to be done. It's the new we're agile, which is the team or the executives say, we're going to have empowered product teams, but they don't. But they say they do. And the teams aren't empowered to make changes, to do things, because of everything you mentioned, which is you have to get it run by, you have to get it approved, and that takes 3 months later. And well, all these things, it's just a new buzzword to say that we have empowered teams when the actions show they don't.
How can you, so here's the question for me, Cory, which is, how do you highlight that? How do you make that really visible to people so that they can see that what they say and what they do are very different?
Record it.
You record it? Okay.
Yeah, in a meeting, we're in a meeting and we're talking about product strategy. We're talking about what we're going to do next quarter, as an example that may come up from time to time.
Yeah.
So we're going to work on these things. These are the problems we're going to solve, whatever. We're going to write down the decisions we made in this meeting. We're focusing on this thing, we're doing this, and we're headed this direction. Okay. The next time that comes up where that shifts or the quarter ends and you go back and say, what did we actually do? And how does that actually look like what we talked about 3 months ago? Are we walking our talk? Did we say we were going to do these things and then actually do them? Did we say we were going to do these things and did something completely different because X, Y, and Z changed? How did we actually do? So when I say record, I don't mean surreptitiously, audio record everything like we're doing here, but just make, Steve calls it a product journal. I'm sure he'll expand on that. I like that idea. These are the decisions we're making. We're going to publicize them so that everybody sees them and shares in the decisions that we've made up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
Steve, any comment?
Well, continuing that theme, the empowerment buzzword is somewhat similar to the visibility buzzword. And that's really kind of what I attempt to do with the product journal is, here are the meetings we had, here are the decisions that were made. And oh, by the way, one quarter we set our decisions aside and we said, well, no, we've decided it's more important to take that deal or adjust our plans based on, a pandemic. And that's cool, as long as everybody was part of that decision and felt like, well, that they were part of the decision, I guess. And so the product journal has two things. One is it just reminds you, the product manager, what did we talk about 6 months ago? Or wasn't that a good idea? It seems like we had a good idea somewhere. Let me go through my notes. I do that a lot. And I'm still, super analog here. I mean, it's in my high school comp book. But the product journal is, here's what we discussed. And here's what we decided. And here's who was in the meeting. And I see we all have some version of the product journal. Yeah, what happened? What did we do? Why did we do that? Here's why we did that, and so forth. And then being to Cory's point, sometime later being able to say, I cannot hear you over the thunder of your actions. You know, we agreed we would do this, and then we didn't, right? And it's okay to have an exception once in a while, but if everything is an exception, then you've got a fundamentally flawed system.
All right. I want to get a point out that I think, May, did you have your hand up, sort of not using your icon hand?
Cory said something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. And so one of the things that we've been struggling with is this idea of what is a commitment, right? When do we agree to do something? And half the time it's leadership. Our current state is that leadership feels like they're not getting brought in to make decisions together. But when we go back to the idea of the empowered teams, should it not be, this is actually very timely for the things I'm working on. Should it not be the teams who are making that commitment decision? Like, is it a management decision? Because like, it's like this is what we're spending time on, so this is what we're investing in, so therefore we're signing off on this. Should it be the teams like, yeah, this is a great idea, let's do it? Or is it both? Or is it like you do the team first and then you pitch it to management? Like what works? What makes it meaningful?
There's so much to unpack there.
You're on mute. Yeah.
Sorry, what makes sorry, I was kind of like trying to get the noun at the beginning of the sentence. So what makes the strategic alignment meaningful, or what makes the decision making meaningful?
What makes a commitment meaningful and who makes it, right? Like,
yeah.
Well, and this goes back to empowered teams, right? At some point, the larger the commitment, at some point you probably have some sort of formal business process for a commit, right? A business plan, a business case, whatever it may be. And leadership should, this is a risk management tool, right? So we see that, but I also look at it as a place where the more we empower people, those decisions become individual. And maybe to the product journal idea, you have to have a journal so somebody can document those decisions that have been made as we go through it. If we don't identify what decisions have been made and what assumptions they were made on, how do we go back when our assumptions aren't true, and understand, how far back do we have to go to change that, find that sliding door, as I mentioned earlier. It's a great question on that. I still in my head, and this is me being the host and changing topic as I want to, going to Pamela's question about how do you sort of this empowered team and that type of stuff. The way I was able to make empowered teams work was I was the bullheaded leader who would be fighting. I had 2 turnaround jobs back to back 20 years ago, where I had to be the person fighting the fight, getting people to see what change had to happen, and empower my teams to do that. And in both cases, leadership wouldn't follow my plan. And in both cases, I kept beating the drum and beating the drum and beating the drum, carrying the flag up the hill, and I got shot. Me getting shot and leaving became the impetus where change was able to happen. The teams became empowered. And so, sometimes you just have to, fall on the hand grenade or whatever it may be. Sometimes you have to take the bullet for the team to enable it. That being said, I'm a change guy, so I was fine. I was happy. I would have gotten bored once the change happened. Once I figured it out, I wasn't interested anymore. But sometimes you have to. It takes somebody leaving. It takes an event like that to happen for people to realize that change has to happen. So Cory, go ahead, Richard, for a second.
I was going to say that reminds me of something that I'm constantly repeating to everyone, and that's nothing changes if nothing changes.
Yeah.
Right.
We're all getting good quotes today.
Good quote.
Right. And right, so with my last role, the company didn't want to change. They wanted to change, but they didn't want to change, right? So the change was me leaving because I still need to change. I still need to grow.
So let me go back to that. So you said nothing changes and nothing changes. They didn't want to change.
So they
the
wanted
question-
to change, but they didn't want to change. They wanted the results from change.
They
but
wanted the
didn't
results,
want
but
to
they didn't want the,
change to get there.
right.
I want to be 180 pounds, but I don't want to change my food I eat, my workout schedule, and that type of stuff. I mean, that's sort of what they're saying is we have this, oh, I have this ideal. I want to change. I want to become this, but we're not willing to put in the work. Is that what you're saying, Richard?
Yeah.
And I think there's a certain comfort level of this is what I've been doing forever.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
I've got a mentor who said his version of it is if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to keep
get the
getting
same
what you're
result.
getting.
Yeah.
Right. You know, that type of stuff. Cory, you've been patient again with us.
Yeah. So the notion of you change your company, you change your company. I love that. The other thing is there's a difference, and we don't have time to get into it, but I think it's worth exploring later, which is there's a difference between getting alignment and staying aligned, which is you work so hard to get alignment when we have meetings, discussions, debates, arguments, spreadsheets with numbers on them to get alignment on things. And then the next day it changes. People say, well, that was great for that, but today's a wholly different day. We have to do something different. Or next month, we have to do something different. That staying aligned, I think, is the harder of the two issues.
Yeah, I completely and totally agree. And gosh, this conversation from the poll, which really grew past the poll, has gotten to this point where we've only got a few minutes left and we're not going to be able to do our next question. But wow, what an amazing conversation. I'm going to do this, and me being the host can do what I want to do. I'm going to go to a couple of the questions. I'm only going to sort of ask one person their thoughts. We can put other stuff in the chat. May, I want to know your thoughts on what is the impact on the team when they do not feel trusted and empowered, or what it's like when they do feel trusted and empowered.
I've worked in one where we're not trusted and empowered, and everyone is waiting for their package. And that's not good.
I've been there.
Yep. And then there's one, but then there's some other people who are like, yeah, this is a job I get paid. I don't care. Right.
Is this quiet quitting? When people don't feel trusted and
let's
empowered?
not use that term. It's called work to rule. It's the actual term for it. Like quiet quitting makes no sense. It's not a word that matters.
Okay.
Anyways, what do you do about it? You need leadership. You can't just go in and say we're going to be empowered now. There's a cost. Empowered teams cost more. You get more results, but it's going to take time for people to learn to get empowered, right? Like over the past year, we're still learning how to better give our teams the power to make decisions and to go and like explore, but it's hard. It's a really hard thing to do. It costs people to smooth it out. Like, you know, I had a conversation with certain people, and they asked me why I haven't delivered on all of the other grand ideas I had for product ops. And it's like, because I'm just trying to hold this thing together while we adapt. You can't, there's a lot of time being sunk into making sure things don't fall apart as you change, because you don't know what you need tomorrow. So
God, completely totally get that. I like that view. I really do. Pamela, you get the next question. How do you get senior leadership to understand the importance of strategic alignment?
I think there's a series of questions that needs to be asked of senior leadership in order to get them to actually be able to hear what you have to say. In other words, they have, like many things, they have to discover it themselves. You can't tell them. You have to get them to kind of say, well, ask them the question, if this, then what? And then hear what they have to say, right?
Okay. I like that. I can get around with that. And that sort of leads to our lightning round question. And we've got to be fairly lightning with this one. What is possible when there is strategic alignment in the organization? What is possible, Cory?
You get to keep your hair.
Boy, bringing that back from the beginning, I like that.
Yeah.
May.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go with that.
May.
Laughing towards.
What?
Too
I have no idea.
She said she's laughing too hard.
She's
I'm going to
laughing
give
too
you a
hard.
pause there. Richard, what is possible when there's strategic alignment in the organization?
Teams that innovate.
Teams that innovate. I love that. You ready, May?
You don't have to fight the other teams.
No infighting. I like that. Pamela.
Move fast and you get a lot more creativity.
All right. Steve.
Two to 4 to 10 times as much of every good thing.
I like that. And I'm going to say what's possible when you have strategic alignment in the organization is sustainable, profitable growth, right? All those things we talked about, keeping your hair, teaching them to, letting the team to innovate. The teams aren't infighting. There's more creativity in 2 to 4 to 10 times more everything. That all leads to sustainable profit. Every good thing, sorry. That leads to sustainable, profitable growth. And that's where strategic alignment and empowerment and trust comes in and helps organizations and project organizations get better. Wow, what a great conversation. I mean, we sort of chased a lot of things around trust and empowerment and teams and change. And, as always, my mind is still going and thinking about some of the stuff we talked about. I probably have to go back and watch this again to get some more insights. But we do this every week. Monday, the question goes into the community. Wednesday, we have the poll when I remember to do it. Friday, we had these amazing calls. Richard, thank you for coming on and adding your insights. Hopefully we'll see you back again. Cory,
Definitely.
Pamela, May, thank you. Cory, Pamela, May, Steve, as always, it's a pleasure to have these incredible conversations with you. And everybody have a great weekend. We'll see you next week in the community. Take care, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.